Hello, I'm Terry Christensen, and this is Valley Politics, once again in Zoom format. Today, San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo will update us on the state of the city as we emerge from the COVID-19 lockdown and on the impact of the pandemic on the city's budget and future development. He'll also answer questions from some special guests. We'll close with a moment to remember Bob Kieve, a beloved local media mogul who passed away recently. And that's what's coming up on Valley Politics. Welcome, everyone, and welcome Mayor Sam Liccardo.
Good to be with you, Terry. Thanks for having me.
Once again, thank you. So we should start with the COVID-19 pandemic and where we are with the lockdown. So where do you think we are? Are we safely reopening? Is it going to accelerate? What's happening?
The good question. Those are all good questions and important questions. The simple answer is we don't know. We'll know more in the weeks ahead about whether their pace is too fast or too slow. I think based on what we're seeing in other places in the country, I think there's been some mixed results where they're opening quite a bit more quickly. So I would imagine that the very slow pace at which we're seeing reopening here is likely to be certainly safe. The real question, of course, is all the counterbalance needs and demands, obviously, of a community where we've got unemployment that likely exceeds 20%. We know that the food lines are growing by the week, and it's a very desperate time for our families. And so, you know, we need an approach that balances certainly our public health needs with all the health and other human needs that are associated with bluntly, the impoverishing of our community as a result of the economic factors we're all grappling with. We've seen a lot of data anecdotally that certainly mental health episodes tend to increase in times like this, suicides, maybe increasing child abuse, domestic violence, a whole host of very serious issues that are undoubtedly compounded by the limitation of movement. And so, you know, in addition to all the economic suffering, we've got a lot of other suffering to balance here. And so I don't think it's just a cold calculation of looking at the infection growth rate data to determine how we're doing. This is a much more nuanced picture that we've got to evaluate, and it requires us to have a more holistic view of our community.
And that's a little bit of a challenge with the way government is structured and local government is structured.
Yeah.
You know, set aside what the national government's doing. But locally, public health is a county responsibility.
Yeah,
but
it is.
You're at the city and you need to get the economy going and development underway again. Are you satisfied with the way this has played out with the city and county relationship?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I should also inject, as you know, there's also a state public health authority as well that plays a very dominant role. And the city doesn't have a public health department. Very few cities do in the state of California. So typically the relationship is either city to state or city to county, depending on whose orders are more restrictive. In this case, the counties clearly are. And there's no question that the decision of the 6 county public health officers several weeks ago back in March to shut things down very quickly saved thousands of lives. It was a very good decision, and you know, we're all very grateful for it. How things have unrolled since has been more challenging. You know, and I've been vocal about it. You know, I published an op-ed in the Chronicle urging many weeks ago that all of the counties set very clear goals around the criteria that would be needed for reopening, whether it's around testing and contact tracing or infection rates or hospitalization rates. A few days later, we did finally get those goals, and that's good. Then what we really needed was public strategies to be articulated. And we're finally seeing that emerge now. Just last week, I think the county put documents in front of the county board articulating some kind of public strategy for building out contact tracing teams, for example, and accelerating testing. That is good, but I think many of us have been urging them to do that much more quickly, and I've been in constant communication with county leadership urging that. And I know the county board is pretty, is frustrated too. I'm talking to various supervisors, including President Chavez and Supervisor Smidian and others, and they're really trying to push as well. And so there's no question there's a need for there to be greater transparency around decision-making and data. And really the critical need, I think, going forward at this point is understanding exactly what are the thresholds that will compel the next step. That is for the public health officer at Cody to decide that we can move forward. What exactly are the thresholds in the data? Is it going to be that the infection growth rate is under 0.85? And then what would cause us to retrench? Is it that the growth rate would be greater than 1.0? Now, we know it's data that's driving the decision, so there's no reason for us not to be more forthright in advance to say, this is what's going to move us ahead or move us back. And that's what I've really been prodding the county to do. So that way we can all plan. We've got a lot of small businesses that are struggling mightily, and they just need to know when they can open or not. Should they be taking out a loan or should they be closing it up? A lot of decisions that need to be made. Obviously, from our standpoint as a city, we're enforcing these laws. We want to know what to anticipate. And so we're trying to really push the county to be more forthright and transparent about the decision-making process. I don't pretend to know that anyone's going to be able to say it's going to happen on this date, but just tell us what are the data thresholds that will compel a move forward or back. I think that is what we need going forward.
Looking to the future, I watched a Spur talk by Richard Florida, the renowned urbanist, the other day, and he said one of the challenges is how siloed our experts are. So the public health people are at the county,
yeah,
but the planners are at the city. Do you think maybe we need a public health officer for the city again, somebody to work with the planners to think about how future development can be reshaped by what we're going through now?
We're considering that now. And for us to do so obviously requires funding commitments to go hire people and so forth. And we're not exactly in that position, given the economic devastation we're facing. But it is something we're considering and we have the authority to do. As you know, throughout California, nearly every city really allows the county to be that public health authority for them. And so we are no different than most cities. The great exception is the city and county of San Francisco, since they're all one entity.
Good. So here's our first guest question. It's from Jessica Pasadillos at the School of Arts and Culture, Mexican Heritage Plaza. Here's Jessica.
Hi, my name is Jessica Pasadillos. I'm the executive director here at the School of Arts and Culture at the Mexican Heritage Plaza. And my question for you, Mayor, is in what ways are you looking at the creative sector to help our community recover?
Yeah, we know that arts groups are suffering mightily right now. And so this is a challenging time for them, but we do need them. We need them enormously because the immense sense of separation that people feel, the isolation, and this takes a toll in so many ways, but fundamentally just on our emotional and mental wellness. This is so critically important. And we know how arts can connect us with one another, and they can build a sense of connection with the community. And so we are critically going to need our arts and cultural community. The question is, how do we engage meaningfully in a world in which we know we can't put a group of people into an auditorium? And so we're going to have to think more creatively about this. A few weeks ago, I announced with Councilmember Deb Davis an initiative called San Jose Al Fresco, to try to see how we could bring commerce outside. And I think very wisely, some of our arts community members said, hey, what about the arts? Shouldn't the arts also be part of that movement? And they're absolutely right. Let's see if we can bring performances outside. We have a lot of experience with this. Obviously, those who have wandered South First Street on a First Friday, for example, about how we can bring the arts out to us in a way that can be safer, right? Socially distanced, but still enabling people to engage. And that's what we want. I mean, I remember so well a beautiful San Jose Taiko performance that was brought out on North 5th Street just a couple of years ago. It was right in front of Norma Netta's house, I recall. And it was a reenactment. It was a play, a musical that was set at the time of the Japanese internment. And I thought, wasn't it really beautiful? It was beautiful in so many levels, but to be able to do that right in Japantown
Yeah.
around the homes of people who had, had ancestors who had parents, or maybe they themselves had suffered in some way through internment, and to bring that expression out in the community in a way so that everyone could see it. This is what the arts can do. I can't tell you I have that answer. I know that there are really smart, creative people in our cultural community who do, and I want to look to them, obviously, for those answers.
I did note that there's only one representative of the creative sector on your Silicon Valley Recovery Roundtable. So maybe you want to enhance that a little bit.
Well, we've got the group we've got, and let me explain. This is not a group that's intended to be comprehensive. We don't have any representatives, for example, from any elected officials, for example. This was really focused on how do we get people back to work? How do we help people who are displaced, who may never get back to work because their industries are going to be gone for a couple of years? How do we find them new occupations? How do we help low-wage workers in particular who are struggling the most? And how do we help the large employers too be able to get the machine going to get people back to work? So it's a very narrowly focused initiative, which already requires us to tackle a lot of different areas, ranging from equity to job retraining to small businesses to tech. And so we didn't want to create this monstrosity that we simply couldn't manage. We wanted to focus everybody's energy. So Connie Martinez is the representative from the arts community, because obviously that is a community that does employ a lot of folks. We don't pretend to believe that somehow or another this is a comprehensive look about how we're going to revitalize our region. This is really focused on, let's see if we can get the economic pieces moving first, and then hope we can move everybody else along in a broader effort later.
Okay, well, let's take another guest question. This is from Tamiko Rast. You mentioned Japantown. She's the president of the Japantown Business Association. So here's Tamiko.
Hi, Sam. I have a question from the Japantown Business Association. Our businesses are grateful that metered parking is free right now because it makes it easier to support our mom and pop restaurants. Could you tell us about some of the initiatives you're working on to help San Jose's small businesses during COVID-19, and whether you're open to keeping parking free in neighborhood business districts for an extended period of time?
Yeah, I should say it's just nice to hear from Jessica and Tamiko, because these are obviously wonderful community leaders. And like the rest of us, I have been a bit disconnected from a lot of people over the last several weeks. So it's just nice to hear from people again. I should say first, on the parking issue, I think we're going to continue to keep it free as long as we know businesses are hanging by a thread, and we know some businesses aren't even doing that. We know a lot of folks have to shut their doors. So yes, we're going to do everything we can to try to help support small businesses. What else are we doing? Well, the first thing we're doing is trying to make sure people get good information. And if you go on SiliconValleyStrong.org, you'll see some clear links that get you to different resources around how you can get PPP money, how you can get SBA loans, all the other kinds of resources. We know that none of those are great solutions. A lot of them require a lot of get through federal bureaucracy and so forth. But we want to at least get everybody the information, the best information we can to help them. Secondly, we've done some fundraising through SiliconValleyStrong.org. Facebook and Apple were generous contributors to a fund that we're now distributing through Opportunity Fund, very small grants, typically $10,000, no more than that, to each business to try to help them just keep the wheels on. And so we're going to continue to fundraise for that effort. And then this Alfresco initiative is another way. We're going to try to see if we can help folks bring commerce outside, take advantage of the 300 days of sun we have a year, and maybe fill some of our parks and streets and parking lots with restaurant tables, yoga studios, whatever it might be that could be brought outside in a meaningful way and done safely to help folks get people back to work. And we're going to be releasing my budget message shortly in a few days, and we're going to have some funding that will help businesses make that transition, so we can maybe close lanes of traffic, for example, to help businesses come outside. So those are the kinds of things we're doing now. And obviously through the Recovery Roundtable, this is a big focus of ours. We have 4 different verticals that this group of 60 folks are working on. And we've got some small business representatives, people like Jesus Flores, who's the head of the Almrock Business Association, as a tax business, and June Tran, who's got a couple restaurants in San Jose. So we're really trying to gather the input of a lot of small business owners from throughout the region. We've gotten surveys now for more than 150 to help us better understand some of their needs. And really the focus, one of the 4 focuses of this roundtable is how do we help small businesses survive and thrive? And this is information we're going to use as policymakers, and then obviously try to trumpet this to Sacramento and also to see how we can get foundations and educational institutions involved.
Good, and I know the city's also working on an anti-displacement policy that for small businesses that could be affected by new development if and when it happens. But you mentioned your budget message is about to come out. What's going to happen?
What's going to happen?
How bad is
question, Terry. If we don't hit the lottery between now and then we have tough decisions to make. The good news is, we've been doing a lot of saving as a city during the good times. I've been blessed as a mayor to come in the good times, and having been someone who has served during the tough times, I knew well that we had to do everything we could to pay down debt and put money in reserves. And we've been really diligent about that. And my last budget message that came out right as we first got a sniff of a community infection here in Santa Clara County, became apparent to me that something bad was brewing. So we literally put $52 million aside and said, we're not going to spend a dime of this. Let's not touch this. And we're going to use it to either pay down debt or put in reserves so we can fill holes. We were effective in advocating with the federal government also get some CARES Act money. So I think we're going to be able to keep the wheels on this year. That's the good news. And many of the key initiatives I've been pushing for many years around everything from, summer jobs for youth to helping our schools with summer and after school learning in low-income communities and trying to help homeless people be able to get back on their feet through jobs programs. Those kinds of things are going to stay in place. We won't be able to grow them, obviously. The real question is what's going to happen the year after this one in 21, 22, when we know this recession is likely to extend, and we don't know how much deeper it's going to get or what kind of shape or recovery we're going to have. And we're going to know a lot more in the next couple of months. And so I'd say this is not going to be the brutal budget. It's quite likely the following year will be. And for that reason, I'm really trying to restrain my colleagues from making decisions that could commit us to ongoing expenditures and doing things like borrowing from different pots of money to hold things over, because you're going to have to repay it, and you don't want to have those repayments coming as you're really encountering the tough times 2 or 3 years out.
So the last couple of times we've talked, I've pressed you on the number of job openings with the city. There were 900 openings in 2018, 600 still in 2020. I guess that's not going to be an issue now.
Yeah, not a problem.
Just to keep people employed rather than to hire.
Yeah, sadly, that's not our problem. Our problem is keeping people employed. Yeah. We're not going to have any layoffs of any full-time employees in this budget cycle. Now, obviously, that could all change if in 2 months, things get a lot worse and we have to go revisit the budget in the fall. But at least for now, it looks like we're going to be able to keep everybody on board, and that's good news. We have had to furlough some part-time employees, though, and we know that's painful for them. So for now, we seem to be okay. And we're much better off than many other cities, in part because we have been really judicious about saving in the good times. But we just know there's no guarantees going forward. And so we just, really I've been very intentional through my last budget message saying, let's reach out to our employees now. Let's get their best ideas about how we can find efficiencies. They know where they are in their own departments, where we can maybe save a few bucks, and use their best ideas so we can keep more people on board. And obviously, the more we keep people on board, the better our services will be to our residents, because it's people who deliver services.
Shifting topics to housing, big crisis in the Valley, which will continue, we presume. Yeah. You set some very ambitious goals early on in your administration, and you haven't been able to meet them. And this is probably going to be a significant setback to meeting those goals. Last year, you said there were too few projects in the entitlement pipeline. Same this year? Have we got projects coming?
Yeah, projects are still, if they've got their financing, then they're going. A lot of financing is falling out right now, as you can expect. And, the challenge we had for 3 or 4 years was costs had risen so much, land costs, labor costs, even to some extent materials costs too, with, the Trump tariffs and things like that. that folks weren't able to get a loan. That is, builders were not able to get financing to actually get a shovel in the ground. And if they can't get financing, then you just don't have a project. So you got to have a pro forma where the costs, obviously balance with the expected revenues, whether it's rent or sales of a condo. The problem obviously going forward is capital markets are frozen. They're going to stay frozen for a few months. So there's not going to be new projects coming through. And we rely on those market rate projects because they also pay fees that help us build affordable projects. And they also build affordable units sometimes on the site, depending on the particular arrangement. But we have a mandatory affordable housing commitment too. So it hurts us both on the affordable side and on the market rate side. Now, I will say, I think we've been looking for some creative opportunities in this crisis, and particularly with regard to homeless housing. And we're going to continue to do that. Obviously, we're looking at motels that may be worth a lot less now than they were worth 3 months ago. And we're negotiating to see if we can buy some motels for permanent or transitional housing for the homeless. And then because of the help we've had from the governor, and we've been deeply engaged with the governor's team on this, and waiving CEQA and pushing a lot of red tape aside, we've been able to move very quickly on some prefabricated modular construction of housing for homeless individuals on 3 different sites. And one of the sites is under construction now. The other 2 will be under construction in a few weeks. And literally, we're building these in 4 weeks, where it would take 4 years or more during the good times. And so, I hate to pull a Rahm Emanuel here, but this is a bit of an opportunity in crisis where, if under emergency order, you can get red tape out of the way, you can move a lot faster. And we've already got a homelessness crisis we've got to answer. And so the good news is we're going to be able to house probably 450, 500 homeless individuals through this transitional housing that we were never able to build before. And we're going to keep looking for those kinds of opportunities. And it's not just on homelessness. We're doing it in other areas. For example, with the digital divide, there's some acceleration that we're able to really make happen now. And we're developing a county-wide food distribution network that we never really had before, because of some really brilliant city staff working hard with great groups like Second Harvest. So we're seeing some real acceleration in things that are critical to an awful lot of residents who have been struggling for many years. And I'm hoping that we can show, when we get out the other end of this, that we're able to demonstrate as a community and as a city organization that this pandemic didn't paralyze us, that we were able to find creative solutions amid the crisis.
We're running a little short on time. I want to make sure to get the other guest questions in. So the next one.
Sorry for talking so long.
The next one comes from Alex Shore with Catalyze SV.
Hey, Mayor Liccardo, Alex Shore from Catalyze SV here. Thanks for your service during these difficult days that our city and our country are facing. Question that Catalyze SV and I would like to ask you: what's the best development project you've seen in any city, and what do you like so much about it?
Oh gosh, that's how I become an enemy of every builder if I pick the other guy's project. I'll just pick one in Seattle just because I think there are a lot of amazing developments, and if you go to cities like Barcelona, you would just be amazed by the beautiful architecture. So there's a lot to choose from out there in the world. But I'll tell you one particular thing I like about this project in Seattle. They're building out the Amazon campus in different ways. And we were looking at it because obviously we've got a Google campus of our own. And what Amazon had done, they really were adamant about creating a lot of public space in the ground floor and making sure it would be public space to be really engaging and open and welcoming to the community. And so they created, of all things, a banana stand at the base of this high-rise tower. And they also created some other retail and restaurants surrounding it. And the banana stand was there literally just to give bananas away for free to the community. And, I don't know how many millions of dollars it costs Amazon, but I can't think of anything more beautiful than just somebody handing out bananas to anybody randomly who wants a banana. and it was, it was quirky and fun, and it invited people in. And all of a sudden you had dozens of people sitting around. Most of them were eating bananas, and some weren't doing that. They were just talking, and it created a vibrant public space. And that's the kind of creativity I think we want to integrate more and more in San Jose. We know we struggle because of the height restrictions and so forth with really high quality architecture. But if we can create better spaces between the buildings, we can compensate for that in a lot of ways and really invite the public in more ways.
We're going to take one more guest question. We need a quick answer to this one because I want to have time to say something about Bob Kieve when we close. So this is from Jean Cohen of the South Bay Labor Council. Here's Jean.
Hi, Sam. This is Jean Cohen. If 97,000 San Joseans signed a petition to put the Fair Elections Initiative on the ballot to allow more people to select the next mayor and ban wealthy special interests from donating to mayor and council races, will you support the council putting it on the November ballot, especially since it appears the city lost 3,000 ballots? Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting and loaded questions, you might imagine, Terry. I'm pretty sure our clerk is convinced she didn't lose 3,000 ballots, but look, I wasn't involved in any of that. And there's a lot of questions about what did or didn't happen at the county registrar's office and why they made mistakes and didn't in county signatures. I'm not going to get into that. What I do know is that there's a lot of concern about the measure and how it decides who can contribute to a campaign and who can't. And a small business owner who wants to contribute to a campaign may be barred, but a union who wants to contribute thousands and thousands of dollars can do so under the measure. And other organizations similarly are not restricted in ways that others are. And I suspect there's a real First Amendment problem with the measure. And so regardless of, I don't expect anybody who signed it to be evaluating for whether or not it's constitutional or whether they've gone and checked with any attorneys. But we're pretty concerned about the constitutionality of the measure. So the answer is no.
That's clear. So we're going to close with a little moment to remember Bob Kieve, who was a great gentleman and a real community servant for a long time. We interviewed him for Valley Politics in 2016. We're going to run a little excerpt of that interview now. So here's Bob Kieve.
2006, Cindy Chavez versus Chuck Reed, or Cindy Chavez when she ran for city council in '98.
I wish I could be more specific about this. The one thing I can be specific about is that I remember that one morning I was awakened by a telephone call from a friend of mine who said, "What have you people done?" And I asked her what it was, and she said, "Well, you'd put out a terrible, terrible, nasty," and really, Terry, it was not at all nasty. It was at that time a list of the votes of Cindy Chavez, whom I love incidentally, but Cindy was the butt of that. And the worst thing that they could do, and apparently it was worse than anybody in the labor movement thought was proper, was to tell us how Cindy had voted. That was all. There was nothing else about it that was bad. I think that was a demonstration of really extraordinary talent on the part of the people who were running labor at that time. They took something that was really mild but negative and built it up as if it had been something terrible, and it just exploded.
God, Bob is such a beautiful man, and well into his 90s, he was the most energetic, incredibly inspirational person, and I loved him for just his incredible civility. He was a guy who may have expressed disagreement at times, but he always did it in a way that was welcoming and kind. And we're going to miss Bob.
Always ready to hear other points of view with curiosity.
Absolutely.
That's all our time for today. Sam, thank you very much for being with us.
It's always a pleasure, Terry. Thanks.
We'll be back next month to begin our election coverage with Kansan Chu and Otto Lee, the runoff candidates for County Supervisor District 3. Meanwhile, you can follow us on Facebook, and you can also catch up on all our previous shows on our website at creatvsj.org or on YouTube by searching for CreaTV San Jose. And now that's all, folks. Thanks for watching.